And we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Unfiltered Report. My name is Ryan. We are back again. Like I mentioned, these will be uploaded relatively around the same time. We just talked about the NBA Finals. Again, congratulations to the New York Knicks. But now we want to go back to the World Cup, recap day three. What a day in the World Cup it was. Uh, Only 3 days in, but far and away the best day of the tournament. Obviously, the most amount of matches up until now. Finally, the first of many of four matches in one day. I mean, it was just an absolutely amazing Saturday of action throughout the landscape, and another jam-packed Sunday upcoming here. Here we are. It's 5:50 in the morning here on the West Coast, Sunday, June 14th, with the four matches on the docket for day four of the World Cup. But before we can have our eyes ahead for June 14th, day four action, we got to recap day three, and what a day at the World Cup it was. Like I mentioned, far and away the best day at this World Cup. Uh, I think you can easily make the argument that these were the four best matches of the tournament so far, or close to it. Um, it was a great day with many different things to get into. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. So first and foremost, we're going to start off in chronological order of the matches, and from the first match of the day to the fourth match of the day. So we started the day in Santa Clara, which it's funny to me. We mentioned MetLife a lot, for example, where like MetLife is not New York City, it's New Jersey. Um, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim never make that doesn't make any sense. I mean, not even the same fucking county. Don't get me started on that. And then, this notion that, you hear on like the broadcasts and stuff that, they're playing in San Francisco. They're not playing in San Francisco. They're playing in Santa Clara. And I know we got our dear Bay Area correspondent. Like I'm sure that, we got people that can say this better than I can, but Santa Clara and San Francisco are not the same thing. Which I know is a big reason why there was a big controversy about the Niners moving to Santa Clara in the first place many years ago, when Levi Stadium first came to be. But at Levi Stadium, first match of the day, 12 in the afternoon, here on the West Coast, we had Qatar and Switzerland. This was a match heading in where I think the consensus for most people was that the Swiss would come out, they'd get 3 points, set the stage for topping the group in Group B. Yesterday, or well, I guess 2 days ago now, um, Canada and Bosnia had played themselves out to a 1-1 draw. So this was a big opportunity for the Swiss to get 3 points. But we also came on here and we said, hey, you know what? Qatar, maybe 4 years ago there was a lot of pressure for them as a host nation, and they have previous experience playing out here in the United States. They've got an experienced side that's been around together, and they've played in major tournaments together beforehand. This is a Qatar side that are also the reigning champions of Asia. They I mentioned so as poorly as they played in the 2022 rendition of the World Cup, and maybe as much as maybe it might be reported that they'll be maybe just cannon fodder to the Wolves. Like I personally, I had a feeling that they would put on a better showing. But with that said, I would be lying to you if I thought that it would unfold in the manner in which it did. Um, yeah, this was one of those matches that I think was really, not only is it a tale of two halves, but I think it's one of those that you almost don't appreciate the beauty of it until after the fact. Where in the first half of that match, I mean, you're thinking, "Holy smokes!" You know, you're thinking this is one for the degenerates at the beginning. You're thinking, man, really, maybe Qatar really don't have much of a chance. The Swiss very early on, had a couple of chances, easily could have gone up early. Um, there was a very interesting, early on in the match where, uh, I mentioned Switzerland had a couple of decent chances. Qatar actually had a decent chance early in the match as well. Um, but the Swiss were definitely dominating the ball, creating the majority of the chances, especially early on. And then there was a very interesting play that happened where uh, the Swiss were awarded a penalty. The goalkeeper was given a yellow card for that. Separate to that, we mentioned this Levi Stadium, home of the 49ers. He took a knee to the head or something like that. I mean, honestly, I don't know how they didn't concussion test this dude, but he ended up playing the whole match and looked fine afterwards. But shit, if I mean, it looked like some serious CTE right there without a helmet, especially. I mean, um, but what was interesting to me was it really, I mean, I don't know, I haven't read into, if there was any justification or verification for the decision and what the reasoning and rationale was, and maybe I'm wrong, but to the naked eye, at least, it looked like it was offsides to me. I'm sure someone out there can explain it better than I can that it wasn't. Maybe, I'm happy to have that conversation, but just from my understanding of the game and I felt as if it looked like an offsides call, but they went the VAR check, and I guess they confirmed that it was a penalty. I don't even really, normally what's fascinating to me is in all these broadcasts they show you a bajillion replays, and then they have the little like animated offsides thing where they have like the, I don't even know how the fuck you describe it, but like the 3D animation where they show you like, oh, they were onside or they're offside. There was none of that, which I thought was very fascinating. I'm not really sure what the reasoning for that was. Maybe they, I don't know. I'm sure if you're gonna rig something, they're not gonna rig it for Switzerland at 12 in the afternoon on match day one. But well, I don't know. I thought that was fascinating. I felt that there was at least a decent shout for that to be offsides, but I guess VAR disagreed, so it doesn't matter what I think. And also, I thought this dude definitely should have probably gotten a couple of concussion tests to it goal, but they disagreed, and almost immediately after getting his bell rung, had to go defend a penalty, try and save a penalty. Guesses the wrong way. Brio puts it in the back of the net. The Swiss go up 1-0, and you're thinking, okay, well, they scored early. Qatar, if they were going to have any chance, maybe they needed to try and drag that 0-0 as long as possible, and try and hold on for a draw. But the Swiss go up 1-0. And then after they went up 1-0, you could feel the pace in the match really, really, there wasn't much flow to the match. It was definitely not the most entertaining match to most people, I'm sure. Especially in the first half, once the Swiss took the lead, especially, we've mentioned the way that they play in the past. They're very, they take their chances when they get them, obviously, but I think the Swiss have always been more comfortable, playing compact themselves and then taking their chances when they get them. But in this situation, obviously, playing against Qatar, they were definitely more on the ball. Qatar were the ones that were really sitting back, organized. Um, the credit to Qatar, they end up, weathering the storm of a couple more chances, and they end up heading into halftime still down only 1-0, and you're thinking, hey, you know what? All things considered, as maybe as poorly of a half as they played, to only be down 1-0, credit where it's due to them. They're hanging around. They're staying tough. They're giving themselves a chance. Um, and so here we go into the second half, and you're thinking, oh well, you know what? Interested to see what happens here in the second half. And again, Switzerland, same story. Really, it's the first half. It's just they had their chances. Obviously, I mean, they dominated the ball. 68% possession. They created a couple of big chances in both halves. I mean, you look down down the line. I mean, by the end of the match, you're looking. They took 26 shots, 7 on target, but they just could not find the back of the net in open play. Um, and the further into the second half that you're going through, you're thinking, well, hey, you know what? Credit to Qatar. At the very least, even if they don't get a result out of this match, even just if they lose 1-0, it doesn't completely destroy their tournament chances, and it gives them a chance heading into match day two against Canada, and on Thursday at 3 p.m. out here on the West Coast, and then match day three against Bosnia, which is Wednesday, June 24th at 12 o'clock in the afternoon on the West Coast. You're thinking, hey, you know what? Look, credit to them. They're competing. They're not getting the doors beaten off of them, whatever the case may be. You're thinking, okay, credit to Qatar. They're hanging around. And honestly, the keeper did play pretty well as well. He made a couple of good saves. I was a bit surprised that Almoiz Ali did not get the start. Didn't even see the pitch. Akram Afif, however, did. I thought Edmilson Jr. Before he came off. I thought he played a pretty solid match. But Qatar did their thing. They were compact. They weathered these 26 shots, 7 on target, and they just kept biding time, and they really didn't have really any or many chances throughout the match. But you just thought, the more that this match goes, are they going to get one chance? And lo and behold, in the fourth minute of stoppage time at the end of the second half, right before the end of the match, really the only legitimate chance that they had probably for a solid 90 something minutes. Um, Almost out of they end up calling it an own goal. Originally, I don't think it was originally scored that way, but they changed it to an own goal. But just at the brink like that, they took their chance, and uh, you know, uh, again, own goal, two players going for it, both trying to head the ball, and the ball makes contact off of the Swiss defender, Miro Muheim. Apologize if I butchered his name. And it goes into the back of the net past Gregor Kobel, the Dortmund keeper, and the Qataris are going crazy in the stands, and it's 1-1, and all of a sudden, the entire trajectory path of that group, maybe shifts a little bit, and instead of the Swiss with if you're the Swiss, if that goal doesn't go in the back of the net, it's a 1-0. It's 3 points, 3 points, and 3 points. I'm sure they would have been disappointed regardless in the 1-0 part of it, but for them to get only a point out of that, definitely the Swiss are going to be very, very disappointed in themselves. And then if you're the Qataris, I mean, we mentioned it last night. Sports is all about momentum, and what that does for their confidence heading into the next two match days can't be understated. Gives them a chance in the group, undoubtedly, not only in the group, but to make it out of gives them a chance to be one of those top three teams, and maybe be one of those whether it's that one of those eight third best sides or whatever it may be, even if they still end up in fourth. I mean, this is a remarkable result for them. Especially considering the disappointment I'm sure they had in 2022, and we mentioned before they made a lot of investments into the national team. They have a lot of national naturalized players that from other countries and receive citizenship to be Qatari citizens. Um, but credit to them. They weathered the storm. They withstood all of the Swiss chances that Switzerland had. They were resolute in their defense as best they could. They mitigated it, and instead of going down not only 1-0, but instead of going down 2 or 3, they kept it at 1-0. They got their one chance in stoppage time, and it went in the back of the net. And now all four teams in Group B are level after match day one in that group, all a point apiece. And again, if sports is all about momentum. And now if you're Qatar, you're thinking you're heading into that matchup against Canada, and you don't even necessarily, you don't even need 3 points necessarily in that match. And even if they don't get any result out of that, they've given themselves to where at match day three against Bosnia, at the very least, they're going to have a chance to make it in some capacity into the round of 32. So even if they don't, just the fact that they were able to get a result out of this is already a smashing success for them. But I don't think they'll be satisfied, obviously, now that, they're all level at one apiece. They're going to fancy their chances to do a similar thing, and they'll play a similar way. They'll sit back. They'll withstand chances, and it'll be a common theme throughout these group stages and throughout the knockout stages of this tournament. You're gonna, it's gonna be like that. So I hope people continue to be ready for these. These types of matches you're going to have where there's going to be 26 shots and seven on target, and it's going to be 1-0, 1-1, 2-0. Um, and in many ways, it might be the ones that are withstanding all the chances that end up on top, or getting a result. And this was one of those where, the real first, quote unquote, shocker of the tournament, the real first, fascinating result, if you will. Not that the other results weren't fascinating, but this was one, watching the entirety of that match. The longer that match went, the more you're thinking, hey, you know what, credit where it's due. They're mitigating the damage. They're not, they're giving themselves a chance, even if they don't get any result. But at the brink, to level it up like that, credit where it's due. And then if you're the Swiss, obviously they're going to be incredibly disappointed with the amount of chances that they had, and to not be able to create a single goal from open play. They're definitely gonna, have to go back and hit the drawing board. And especially, if you're the Swiss, you got to be thinking about, well, you're going to be, Bosnia is going to do the same exact thing, you know, uh, on match day two, and if they had trouble, obviously breaking down the way that Qatar were set up, Bosnia is going to set up very similarly. And Bosnia will be the happiest side on planet Earth to take a 1-1 draw as well. So this is one of those groups that, we might be looking at it, forecasting it through. I mean, really, this might be one of those groups where, I mean, I think heading into it, you kind of felt maybe it could be one of those, but even more so, really up for grabs. I think that you can make the argument now after match day one onwards, like, 1 through 4 is up for grabs. They're all level on a point apiece, and it makes the match day 2 and 3 incredibly exciting to monitor. So I, for one, really can't wait to see how this group plays out after these two results. With Bosnia and Canada, and then Qatar and Switzerland, setting up match day 2 with Qatar and Canada, and then Switzerland and Bosnia coming up on Thursday. But going with the atmosphere part of it too. When I tuned in right before the match, when they were doing the national anthems and whatnot, I there were more people maybe than I expected, but there were also, by that same token, there were a lot of empty seats. The Qataris had a, pretty solid contingent. The Swiss had a solid contingent. There was a lot of red with the 49ers red seats, and then the two countries, there's a lot of red. I'm sure for all of our kit lovers out there and our fashion lovers, um, it was a bit bizarre seeing Switzerland in green like that. Definitely would have taken most people by surprise. I'm sure there's some people out there that have some strong opinions about that with the Swiss kit and how that looked. But all in all, it was not the most raucous atmosphere by any means. It was, especially throughout the majority of the match, it really felt like one of those, European clubs that they come out here and they do those like United States tours and like the little friendlies. That's kind of what it felt like throughout the match. It had that kind of vibe to it. It was a match that didn't have the up and down pace that a lot of people love. But at the end of the day, if you're Qatar, you don't care how it looks. You get the result. You don't give a shit. You're not there to entertain people. You're there to get results. and for them to get a point, if you're Qatar, you know what that does for their confidence is off, you know, they get through the roof. And then if you're the Swiss, you know they got to hit the drawing board and they got to find some answers soon because Boston is not going to be easy to break down on match day two. And you know, if you're the Swiss, all of a sudden, you know, things get a little bit shakier. You know, if you go in there and you get another draw perhaps on match day two, you know, maybe things aren't looking for them as optimistically as they did. So now you got to go into that Bosnia match if you're Switzerland, and you got to be thinking how can we get 3 points in that match, and then obviously knowing that Bosnia is going to be the happiest side on planet Earth to get another 1-1 draw or a 0-0 draw. So I'll be really interested to see both of those matches, and then Canada obviously, you know, I expect match day two, you know, Canada will be similar to this match. Canada is, and similar to Canada Bosnia. Canada's going to be on the ball. Canada's going to be creating the majority of the chances. They're going to have the Vancouver crowd behind them. Um, but Qatar are going to set up very similarly. Can they pull off a similar result as well, or will Canada be able to break them down in a way that the Swiss were not able to? And maybe that shakes things up at the top of the group as well. So time will tell. We'll continue to preview that and look ahead to that as it gets closer, especially. But all in all, you know, maybe not the best atmosphere on planet Earth, but a very, you know, maybe not the most entertaining match on earth for the entertainment folks out there. But you know, I really enjoyed watching this one, especially the further it went on. The first half was a tough watch. You know, I'm on. I thought it was a pretty tough first half to watch, but I thought as the match went on, especially in the second half, the longer it stayed 1-0, you know, the more I started, you know, my tune started to shift a little bit, and I started to say, hey, you know what? Really credit was due to these guys, and then obviously for them to get a result, tip of the cap. So that was the first match of the day. The second match of the day was the headliner of the day, you know, on paper for sure, between Brazil and Morocco. And we came in here last night and kind of said, hey, you know what? With the way that this group shakes out and it sets up, with the fact that this is match day one, maybe if this is a match day three matchup, maybe both sides approach it a little differently. But given that it's match day one, and you kind of got the impression maybe heading into it, you know, my thought process at least was okay, you know, neither side's going to really want to expose themselves maybe too much. Though I think both sides heading into it, I figured would be happy with a draw. Um, and and then live to see against Scotland and Haiti for both of them and see who tops the group that way, as opposed to against each other head to head. Whereas maybe on match day three, if they would have played, it would have been for the top of the group. In that aspect, maybe it would have opened up a little bit more. But I felt the way that it set up, match day one, I figured both sides would be content with the draw. Um, but look, this was still a headlining match. Look, these are two teams. Both of these teams are going to have a chance to make a run, especially Morocco. You know, I know some people out there maybe who don't watch as intently throughout the season. You know, I think might be surprised. But obviously, Morocco were semifinalists in last year's World Cup. It's not like there's some dark horse Cinderella. I mean, these guys are a force, and Brazil obviously. There's been a lot of chatter about Brazil and Carlo Ancelotti, but look, I think both of these sides are going to be, you know, they're going to be tough outs in knockout stages, especially. They're both going to have a really good shot to make a run, and you know, in Morocco's case, you know, look, they made the semifinals last year, but I think they're better in this go around in 2026 than they were in 2022. They've got some really, really good young talent. Speaking of young talent on the Morocco subject, this 18-year-old kid from Lille, Ayoub Bouadi, he was dominating the midfield the entire match, and he was one of, if not the most impactful player throughout the entire match. He played the full match. The entire Moroccan side, really. I mean, just the youth that they have, the way that they play. I mean, it was really, really enjoyable to watch them play. I mean, they're going to be really dangerous. They don't really have any major weaknesses. I think throughout the side, they're balanced. They're the keeper, Yassine Bono, obviously last World Cup was one of the big stories, and he was rock solid again today. Um, their back line, obviously, Hakimi gets a lot of the love, but you go down the list, and whether it's Chatty Riyad or Issa Diop or whoever it may be, that they have out there. We mentioned Boadi. The midfield they did a great job. I thought Ismail Saibari was going to be a player to watch. Had a really good year at PSV. He actually scored the first goal of the match. Really, really nice goal for those of you who haven't seen it. Really, really smooth. Morocco were the better side at the beginning of the match, especially, and a well-deserved opening goal for them to take the lead. I think, yeah, they were the better side for sure. Again, at the beginning, and about 11 minutes later, it took a moment of brilliance from Vinny to level it up 1-1. A really nice goal as well. Two totally different goals, but both equally as aesthetically pleasing to the eye. Um, but really, the match played out as expected. Those were the only two goals. It was a 1-1 draw. There were a couple of chances, for both sides throughout the rest of the match, obviously, that came calling. But all in all, this was really not a terribly surprising result. Um, Atmosphere wise, this was at MetLife, obviously. I think this match was a great opportunity to kind of showcase something that we haven't talked about yet, which was something I wanted to bring up beforehand regarding the atmospheres pre-tournament and throughout the tournament, where given that it was going to be in North America, one of the things that is different between North American sports and then the international game is, and we can use this Knicks Spurs game 5 and as a great example, and all the Spurs home games, for example, where there were a lot of Knicks fans in San Antonio throughout those 3 games in San Antonio, especially tonight for the clincher. But there are no designated like supporter sections that they have in Europe, for example, or in other countries in South America, Asia, where they'll have in the club game or international, whatever it may be. But you'll have behind each goal, you'll have the ardent, passionate supporters in on both sides, and they'll be separated, so they'll all be together. Whereas, one of the things I think pre-tournament that I was hoping to talk about more pre-tournament, sometimes a lot of things kind of slip out of your brain, but I think this match was a great way to kind of highlight it from an atmospheric perspective where, um, obviously I know the caveat is that the reason why in international, whether it's club or world football, but when they have it overseas, they have these supporter sections broken down like that is because, they don't want the security concerns of these guys going in and beating the crap out of each other in the stands and killing each other or whatnot. So obviously that's the caveat, but I have always felt that that makes for a far better viewing experience, especially in these types of international tournaments with the atmospheres, because all of the supporters are gathered up in one section, so they're all making noise together, as opposed to if there's a lot of for example, in this match there was a lot of Brazilian support. There was a really solid Moroccan turnout as well. Obviously, a lot of Brazil supporters. I think that but the point I'm trying to make is that if you look at the match, instead of a sea of red on one end and then a sea of yellow on the other end, you look at the match and you have like a sea of red with yellow sprinkled in, and then a sea of yellow on the other end with red sprinkled in, which I think somewhat takes away from the atmosphere. Obviously, the price points as well, but look, it was a packed house, two passionate fan bases, two fan bases that are two countries that are going to expect a deep run in this tournament. And I think this match played out the way that it did. I think no surprises really. I think if there was one side I think that would be happier than the other, I think it would have to be Morocco. I think they were the far more inviting side. I think they were far more in control of the match. I think they took it to them early, and then I think they were just in control. They were never really out of sync, out of sorts. They were comfortable in possession. They were comfortable defending. I mean, about as even of a possession split as you can get. The chances were about as evenly split as you can get. Morocco with 14 shots, three on goal. Brazil, 12 shots, five on goal. Possession went about 51-49 in favor of Brazil. Um, Really, every statistical category confirms the eye test, essentially, is my point, where it was a very even match. Um, again, a lot of support for both sides. There was a lot of Moroccan support. There was a lot of Brazilian support. Um, I think atmospheric wise, I think it could have probably been even louder. Maybe if the ticket prices and whatnot on one end, and then on the other hand, I think if you would have had all of the Moroccan red being able to make noise together, or a majority of it. I don't mind the sprinkled in stuff in certain aspects, but I think it would be nice to have those that you typically see in international tournaments where you get like, if you go back and watch past tournaments where, if it would have been this match, for example, behind one goal would have been just a sea of red making a cauldron of noise, and then behind the other goal would have been a sea of yellow. But, in this match, again, like I mentioned, it's you get on one end more red with the sprinkle of yellow, and then on the other end you get the vice versa aspect of that. But overall, that match played out, I think as expected. But if there was a side that I think would be happier, it would be Morocco if you had to pick one. But you know what? I think Brazil. I think Carlo Ancelotti is still going to get a feel for it. I think this was a really great example. To be honest with you, though, I think why I think I'm sure I'm not alone in this opinion. I think they really could have used a guy like Shao Pedro out there. Um, I think they could have really used him out there. And I think not having him is still a decision that I don't quite understand or really at all. But Carlo Ancelotti knows a lot more than I do, I'm sure. So there must be some reason that I don't know of. But I think Brazil will be fine as well moving forward. I think Carlo, all things considered, will be happy with the result that they got. I think Brazil, as the match went on, got a little bit more comfortable. I think even in the post game presser, Carlo Ancelotti mentioned that there might have been a little bit of nerves at the beginning, especially, and they might have been battling through that, and that they still uh, they're still going to try to need to find a couple of tweaks and, kind of see who plays well with who, and, what type of tactical adjustments they want to make heading into match day two, where they're going to play Haiti on Friday at 5:30 Pacific. That match is going to be in Philadelphia, and then Brazil have Scotland on match day three, where that match will be in Miami. And then if you're Morocco, you got Scotland on match day two. That match will be in Foxborough, Massachusetts. And then Morocco will have Haiti on match day three. And then that match will be in Atlanta. So I look again. I think both sides will be happy. I think both sides will fancy their chances against Haiti and Scotland moving forward, and they'll still be the favorites in the group. But I do want to get into Haiti Scotland because Haiti and Scotland to me, we came on, and we said, hey, you know what? Haiti might not get a result, but I think they'll play. Think they'll play better. That maybe might be expected. And you know what? I thought this match, you want to talk about atmosphere. The Scots really traveled well for this one. There was a lot of pre-match buzz about the Scotland supporters, um, taking over Foxborough, and there was a decent amount of Haitian support as well. But I mean, it was just the sea of Scotland red, because they were wearing their away kits, if you will. and the supporters were up to the task, and they showed up in their Scotland red. And I mean, I thought this was really, I thought this was such an exciting match. This was going on congruently with the NBA Finals and the College World Series. I thought it was a fun match. Haiti in many ways, I think, we're a bit unlucky for the result to have played out the way that it did. I thought maybe, you know, uh, I thought it was an even match, and I think Haiti easily would, I think they deserved maybe a result in many ways. The goal that Scotland scored, John McGinn, I mean, there's definitely a little bit of luck involved. Now, Scotland did have another chance that went off the top of the goal there, but the John McGinn goal, was definitely a little bit of luck and fortune. Haiti were they were on the ball more. I think Scotland were more content, especially once they went up to kind of, sit back and hold on to the 3 points. And, Haiti were a bit unfortunate that they weren't able to get a goal themselves or that it wasn't a nil-nil draw. It ends 1-0 to Scotland, but, the match was a fairly even match in many ways. Haiti, I think Haiti created more chances. I think, they had the majority of the ball. They had, they were I think they were confident in possession. They were, getting into the final third. They really just couldn't find that final bit of, finishing touch to really, put one behind the back of the net. That was really the one thing that really did them in is they were in dangerous positions really, different parts throughout the match. They just lacked that finishing touch in the final third, or whether it was not being able to. They had a couple of really good chances. They had a header that went wide. They even had a couple of that didn't end up in the stat sheet at all, but maybe a couple of attacking plays where maybe they didn't even really get anything on target, but they were in dangerous areas. I think again, if you're Haiti, I think you're proud of the fact that you competed. I think they'll be a bit disappointed and a bit undone that they didn't get a result out of this and that they did get at least a point. Um, and for Haiti, it might be for them that they end this World Cup campaign without a singular point, especially considering that they have to play Brazil and then Morocco. But I don't think Brazil and Morocco should really take them lightly either. I think Haiti will go for it similarly to this. Obviously, Morocco and Brazil will not be playing like Scotland did. Scotland were happy to, give up possession and sit back. Steve Clark's side were very content. And I don't think anybody, whether it was in the stands or back in Scotland or any Scottish person out there anywhere across the world, I don't think they'll care how it looked. I don't think they'll care that it was 1-0. I don't think they'll care about any of that. I don't think they'll care if they didn't score more, if it wasn't the most aesthetically pleasing performance from the Scottish per se. Steve Clark, I don't think he'll apologize for it either. I don't think any of the players, anybody will. First World Cup win for them in 36 years. We mentioned that match day two for them, Scotland against Morocco, is going to be right back in Foxborough. I'll be really interested to see how that atmosphere goes as well. You want to talk about atmosphere, it plays such a big part. It gives such an added boost to a lot of these teams, feeding off that energy. And I think Scotland, in many ways benefited from that, being able to have that support in the way that they did. Um, one of the better atmospheres so far in the tournament was this match. They took over Foxborough. Um, and like I said, I don't think they'll apologize or care for the fact that maybe it wasn't their best performance by any means, but they'll take the 3 points. And as of now, they're top of the group. Obviously, things might change, but if you're Scotland now, the big thing that you're thinking if you're Scotland is you have to hope that now that you got the 3 points that they wanted, because I think anybody, I think, they would have told you if you're Scotland, you need these 3 points in this match on match day one to have a chance to get out of the group And even again, if you're not going to be one of those top two sides, can you be one of those top eight third place sides? And I think if you're Scotland, you have to be hoping that these 3 points is a great start for them. And even if you don't get a result in either of these next two matches, we'll see if that'll be enough to get them out of out of the group stage and into the round of 32 knockout stages. But a big thing for Scotland now. I mean, if you thought they were playing and sitting back against Haiti, I mean, well, they're going to be sitting back 10 behind the ball. I mentioned it's going to be a common theme throughout the tournament. Scotland are going to be hanging on for dear life. They're gonna hope for a draw, or at the very least, we were talking about with Qatar and Switzerland earlier. Even if Qatar hadn't equalized 1-1, can you mitigate the goal differential damage even if you don't get a result? Can you make sure that you don't get the doors beaten off you 3-4? Kind of like what happened to Paraguay last night, or 2 nights ago, I should say, really, in Inglewood, California, out at SoFi. So if you're Scotland, you're going into that Morocco match on Friday at 3 p.m., and then you're going into Brazil match day 3 on Wednesday, the 24th at 3 p.m. on the West Coast. Obviously, that match will not be on the West Coast, but I use West Coast timing. Um, if you're Scotland, you have to be hoping that that's enough. And then Haiti, obviously, going back to them, I think they'll be disappointed. I think they if they would have gotten a result out of this, it would have been a really well deserved result. And it's unfortunate that that doesn't tell the full scope of the match. I thought they played really well, and they have nothing to be ashamed of. I think they gave it a go, and credit to Haiti too. They went for it. They didn't just hang on for dear life and sit on their laurels. They really went for it. They took their chances. They tried to play as progressively as they could. They just again they got a little bit unlucky in the John McGinn goal, and then by that same token, I think they were a little bit unfortunate in the fact that they weren't able to get one behind the back of the net. But looking ahead to the rest of the group, I think Brazil and Morocco obviously are still going to be the favorites. They're still going to be the top two. We'll see what the order is. I mean, you can make the argument for both to finish top of the group. In many ways, it'll probably come down to goal differential and who's able to separate themselves goal differential wise in those two matches. But I think, again, moving forward, I think if you're Scotland, you have to be thinking, is this going to be enough to get us to the round of 32 with these 3 points? Can we find a way to maybe get another point on one of these extra two matches? Or at the very least, if they don't, can we try to put ourselves in a position to be one of those eight third place sides? And then if you're Haiti, you got nothing to lose. Go out there, play the same way you did against Scotland, give it a go, give them the best that you can handle, and see if you can try to make your nation proud. And even if you don't make it out of the group stages, if they play like that, they'll have nothing to be ashamed of. So I give a lot of credit to Haiti as well. And then again, we mentioned Scotland, and we love to talk about atmospheres on here. The Scottish supporters are definitely going to be a big factor throughout the rest of this tournament as early as match day 2. And I'll be interested to see the split with the Moroccan supporters, with the Scottish supporters in Foxborough, given that Morocco had a pretty good, supporter showing against Brazil. And obviously Scotland took over Foxborough. I assume all those people will be back. I'm sure they didn't come all the way there just to go to one match, or I'm sure a new wave of people will be coming in for match day 2 that weren't there for match day 1. So that's going to be a really fascinating match on match day 2. I'm really looking forward to Scotland, Morocco, especially. And then we'll see what Haiti can do. But the last match of the night, it was one of these. We talked about it throughout, before the tournament, and we'll talk about it throughout the tournament. I love these 9 p.m. matches. I mean, give me more of that shit. 9 p.m. on the West Coast, and I can only speak on my own behalf. I know, obviously, there are different time zones throughout the world, and some people probably will disagree. But for me personally, I love these 9 p.m. matches. Give me more of that. Give me, I mean, just the morning to night way that it goes, where I can't get enough of it. I do love it. Give me these 9 p.m. matches, that end around 10:50, 10:55, 11 p.m. I love that. I love it. But look, we mentioned, my guy D the other night mentioned that, you know, some of these Pac-12 after dark affairs, if you will, and this match was actually in Vancouver. But the Pac-12 after dark lives anywhere, and I got to give some love to my guy D. I know he'll come on here and give himself a. I'll have to give him a pat on the back and give him the ability to take a victory lap because he really he came on here and said don't sleep on Australia, and I got to give him credit where it's due. Um, I give him his flowers for that. He really came on and it's on record and off the record as well, where he said Australia is going to be a really tough side and don't sleep on them one bit. And lo and behold, we mentioned that one of the similar themes of the tournament was going to be teams sitting back 10 behind the ball, take your chances when you get them. I mean, you look at the, obviously statistics don't always tell the full scope of the match and the full scope of the story, but just to put this in perspective here, Turkey 72% possession. They completed over 400 more passes than the Aussies did. They had 30 shots, 8 on target. You look at those numbers. Oh, and they had 12 shots blocked as well, which will be a similar theme throughout the tournament as well. But, again, you look at those numbers and you think, well, man, I mean, Turkey Turkey, they must have won. But look, similar to Switzerland and Qatar earlier, this was a huge day for the AFC. Um, bookending the day in the way that they did with Qatar getting a result, getting a draw against the Swiss. We mentioned the Swiss had almost 30 chances, 30 shots themselves. But look, a similar theme throughout the tournament. Australia, they did what they had to do. They sat back, they absorbed pressure, they took their chances when they could take them. This kid Nestori Irankunda, the 20-year-old. I mean, he was a really, really exciting player to watch throughout this match. The young Watford forward, he really, we always talk about, players, in the World Cup. It's an opportunity. It's a launch board for the rest of your career. It's a coming out party for a lot of these players. It gives them the opportunity to get the world's eyeballs on them. Not only in that sense, but for their club careers, it gives them the ability to make. We mentioned this Ayub Bouadi kid from Morocco earlier, Ismail Saibari, all these different guys that they got on Morocco. They're going to be, breakout stars of this tournament. Um, this Aaron Kunda guy definitely made a name for himself, and also up front, Mohamed Toure from Norwich. He definitely, even though he didn't have a goal necessarily or anything of that nature, he was definitely a fascinating watch today up top as well. There were some big decisions by the manager of Australia, not Greg Popovich, but Tony Popovich. Um, he made a couple of big decisions. One of which was to start Patrick Beach, the 22-year-old Melbourne City goalkeeper, in goal instead of the far more experienced Matt Ryan. And that was a big decision in media circles. Also, Jackson Irvine didn't get a start, and that was a big surprise to a lot of people. But you know what? We always talk about it. If you're going to make, you got to, fortune favors the bold, fortune favors the brave, as they say sometimes, and you got to go for it. You got to take calculated risks and whatnot. And credit to Australia, they really, um, I mean, they did what they had to do. They absorbed pressure. They really, look, did they have a ton of chances throughout the match? No, they did not. Again, they weren't on the ball much. Uh, they only, they took 9 shots, 4 on target, but 2 of those 4 went in the back of the net. The second one they scored in the 75th minute, Connor Metcalf, really, that one felt like it. Again, it was a similar story. On the break, almost, I wouldn't say out of nowhere, but really out of nowhere. And Turkey, they definitely. they'll be very disappointed with this result on match day one. Listen, I'd be lying if I said that I thought Turkey were going to lose 2-0 in this match. But, Pac 12 After Dark lives on. And, you know, the bookends of these, this was a great day for the tournament. It really was. Qatar starting the day, getting a result. Brazil, Morocco play into a pretty entertaining 1-1 draw at MetLife. Haiti putting on a really good performance against Scotland. Really gave Scotland all they could handle. And then Scotland being able to get their first World Cup win in over 3 decades. I mean, it was a great day just leading into this match. So even if Turkey would have won or would have been a draw, whatever it was, it would have still been a great day. But for the Aussies to pull that out 2-0. Again, we love to talk about atmosphere on here. There was a large contingent of Aussie support for the Socceroos. There was a nice little strip of Aussie yellow behind one of the goals. That was nice to see. And then in the higher deck, there was an even larger contingent as well. Not to say, of course, that there weren't Turkey supporters throughout the stands. Um, but the Aussies really traveled well, and they really you know again, similar theme. Atmosphere is a big part of it. The traveling support is a big part of how you perform, and the Aussies certainly I felt fed off of that energy. I think they fed off of that. They did everything they could. They defended their asses off. Again, Turkey, yes, you look at the numbers, but again, statistics, this is where the caveat stats don't always tell the story. They really didn't have any. I mean, this is one of those that it was a well-deserved 3 points for Australia. It's not like it was a fluke. I mean, yeah, Australia, you look at the stats, they dominated the ball, they dominated the majority of the chances. But, Patrick Beach in goal didn't really have to do a whole lot. The majority of his saves were right at him. Turkey were they never really felt fully comfortable, being able to break down the wall of defense. I mean, it's a tough thing to do when you got 10 behind the ball like that, and when you're committed to defending like that. I think Warren Barton on the broadcast said it best. I think Warren Barton was ready to go out there and go tarps off in the streets of Vancouver with the Aussies. He was having a blast. Um, Warren Barton was saying, he said it best, defending is an art form. And, especially in the global game, Turkey, you look on paper, the more talented side, they've got the players at the bigger clubs. And, even you had the Turkey players coming in before the match saying, hey, we are the better side. We do expect to, we have more talent with the better side. We're fully confident. Um, but this was a big shakeup in Group D. Uh, Australia joins the United States with 3 points. The United States top of the table on goal differential with the +3 in goal differential. Australia sitting second, second in the table with a +2 goal differential. And then you've got Turkey now behind the 8 ball. Or if you're Turkey now, all of a sudden Friday at 8 p.m., another one of these little Pac-12 After Dark matches out in Levi's in Santa Clara against Paraguay. That's a big match for both of those sides, especially for Turkey, who, we mentioned before the tournament, they probably would have fancied their chances. Maybe go top of the group, maybe at the very least top two. But now, all of a sudden, behind the 8 ball, you have to be looking at it. If you're Turkey, you need 3 points in that match, especially with the United States looming at SoFi on match day 3. Um, I'll be interested to see again with Paraguay. Are they able to bounce back? Maybe play a little bit better than what they showed. They were abysmal, obviously, Friday night against the United States, but maybe pressure of the moment maybe got to them. Maybe who knows? We'll find out on match day 2. But with Turkey, again, similar theme throughout the tournament. A lot of these sides are going to be sitting back 10 behind the ball, but it's tough to break down. It really is, especially if you execute it in a way um, where you're really resolute. It's tough. It's tough to break down. And so credit to Australia. Not only, I think if Australia would have gotten a draw on this, they would have been really happy. But to get 3 points and in the manner in which they did, were really honestly once they went up 1-0. I mean, you never really felt that Turkey was able to create any legitimate chances. They never really felt fully comfortable, even though they dominated the majority of possession. They just lacked that finishing touch. And so again, all the credit in the world to Australia. A big result, and a big night for the AFC, which sets us up for our look ahead to today's action. We're about 3 hours and 16 minutes away from Germany and Curacao, starting off the day, 10 a.m. here on the West Coast. That match will be in Houston. That will be the Group E opener. We mentioned the AFC was a big day for them on Saturday. It was going to be a big day for Japan going up against the Dutch. That match will be 1 p.m. here on the West Coast. That match will be in Arlington, Texas, out at Jerry World. Ivory Coast, Ecuador, a match I've been looking forward to all tournament. Before the tournament, I think these are two quote unquote dark horses that can really make a run in this tournament. They'll be tough to both of them will be tough outs, and I think both of them will have a good shot to not only make it to the knockout rounds, but maybe even advance. That match will be at Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia, home of the Eagles, at 4 p.m. on the West Coast, and then you've got the 7 p.m. match, uh, the Group F. The second match in Group F between Sweden and Tunisia. That match will be in Guadalupe, Mexico. So we've got a full 4 game slate, Group E and F. The tournament now heading into day four. The ball is fully rolling. Get ready for 4 matches a day. Get ready for a full day of action throughout the tournament. Can't wait for all four of these and to come back and recap them probably around the same time tomorrow, give or take. Um, but it's going to be a big day of football. Four really interesting matches. 4 matches that I think will come back, and we might even come back and say that match day 4 was even better than match day 3, and that's my hope is that each day is better than the last. Again, can't wait to see how these play out. For those of you out here in the United States that are watching these matches on Fox, and you don't watch these matches on Telemundo in Spanish, or you don't watch the World Feed. If you do happen to watch them on Fox, uh, for Germany and Curacao, you'll have Ian Dark and Landon Donovan on the call. For Netherlands, Japan, you'll have Darren Fletcher and Owen Hargraves. For Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire, and Ecuador, you'll have JP Dellacamera and Lori Lindsay making their tournament debut. Partnership duo. And then for Sweden and Tunisia, you'll have Tyler Terrens and Maurice Edu making their tournament debuts as well. But that's, for those of you that are into that sort of thing. But obviously, we try to do our own thing over here, and we'll continue to do our part. Knock on wood, and come in here each night, each morning, each day. Recap the previous day with a look ahead to the day ahead. We're going to do it throughout the tournament. We're going to try to do our best, manifest it 39 for 39. Um, can't wait to continue to talk about the rest of these matches. And again, stay tuned for the stars of the Unfiltered Report. They're going to come on throughout the tournament and give their beautiful insights to the beautiful game as well throughout the tournament. And then hopefully we'll get some some of the people out there, whether it's outside the stadiums, inside the stadiums, at these fan zones, talk to the people as best we can throughout the tournament. But three match days in, it was our first full day of 4 matches. It's full speed ahead from this point out. Get ready for 4 a day and then 6 a day on match day 3. So it's going to be a glorious summer. We continue to bang the drum on that. Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy it. Enjoy it for what it's worth. It's going to be another spectacular day. It's going to be a full Sunday, 2 College World Series games, 4 World Cup matches, Game six of the Stanley Cup Finals, a full day of Major League Baseball. You go down the list. It's one of those days where you want a lot of screens, and it's a great day to be a couch potato. It's also a great day to go out and go to a watch party, go to a bar, whatever it may be. However you enjoy your sports, enjoy them, enjoy them purely, and I hope you'll enjoy them each day more than the last. So this has been our World Cup match day three. Well, not match day three, day three recap of match day one. Can't wait to come back here again. Stay with us throughout the tournament, ladies and gentlemen. This has been the Unfiltered Report. My name is Ryan. Stay tuned for our College World Series recap, but a little bit of maybe some Major League Baseball sprinkled in there. Um, Stay tuned. Let's have a blast. Stay safe out there.